The 6 Buddhist secrets to heal your mind and calm your heart. In a world that constantly pushes us toward achievement, comparison, and endless motion, our minds often become restless and our hearts burdened with anxiety. The Buddhist path offers an antidote to this storm, a quiet, profound invitation to return home to ourselves. Buddhism does not promise a life without pain, but it teaches us how to live without unnecessary suffering. Healing the mind and calming the heart are not distant ideals. They are the result of insight, awareness, and compassion cultivated moment by moment. The Buddha's wisdom arose from direct observation of the human condition. He saw clearly how our attachments, fears, and illusions create an inner battlefield that prevents peace. But he also revealed a way out, a path of healing that brings serenity to the mind and liberation to the heart. The 6 Buddhist secrets you are about to explore are not mystical formulas, but living truths that can transform your experience if you are willing to see, feel, and practice. Let us walk slowly through this journey of inner healing, one secret at a time. The first secret: understanding the nature of suffering. Before healing, there must be understanding. The Buddha's first teaching after enlightenment was the first noble truth. Life contains suffering, dukkha. But this acknowledgement is not pessimistic, it is compassionate realism. To understand suffering is to understand life. Every human being faces loss, impermanence, longing, and disappointment. We cannot escape these conditions, but we can learn to see them clearly. Suffering begins when we resist what is. Our minds grasp at pleasure, comfort, or certainty, and recoil from pain, change, or uncertainty. This grasping and rejection form the root of mental anguish. The Buddha observed that even when we possess what we desire, fear arises, the fear of losing it. Thus, clinging breeds anxiety, avoidance breeds ignorance. Healing begins the moment we stop fighting the truth of impermanence and start embracing the reality of change. To heal your mind, you must first look directly into its movements. Notice how your thoughts constantly demand things to be different. I should be happier. They should understand me. This should not be happening. These hidden demands create friction within you, but once you bring awareness to them, a subtle peace begins to arise. You start realizing that the world is not obligated to fulfill your preferences. You begin to let go. This is why meditation is central in Buddhism. Meditation is not an escape from pain, but a deep encounter with it. When you sit in silence, observing your breath and thoughts, you are training your mind to remain open and stable amid discomfort. Over time, your relationship with pain changes. You no longer see it as an enemy, but as a messenger. Suffering becomes a teacher that reveals your attachments, your expectations, and your fears. The Buddha compared the human experience to being shot by 2 arrows. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life, illness, loss, aging, death. The second arrow is self-inflicted. It is our reaction to the pain, our mental resistance, our narratives of why me. The wise person learns to stop shooting the second arrow. That is the first act of healing. When you truly understand suffering, compassion naturally arises, not only for yourself but for others as well. You begin to see that every person you meet is carrying invisible burdens. You stop judging and start empathizing. Understanding suffering dissolves the illusion of separation. It awakens the heart. So, the first Buddhist secret to healing is not about escaping pain, but about understanding it deeply enough that it loses its power to control you. Healing begins not when life becomes easy, but when you stop demanding that it should. If this reflection brings peace or clarity to your mind, take a moment to support the message. Subscribe to the channel and join a community devoted to growth, mindfulness, and compassion, because wisdom multiplies when shared. The second secret: the power of mindful awareness. Healing the mind and calming the heart are not the result of external events aligning perfectly. They emerge from the cultivation of awareness. Mindfulness, or sati in Pali, is the capacity to observe life as it unfolds without resistance or distraction. It is the art of being present, of seeing thoughts, emotions, and sensations clearly without being carried away by them. In the teachings of the Buddha, mindfulness is both the path and the destination. It is the means through which confusion becomes clarity and chaos becomes peace. In our ordinary state, we live imprisoned by automatic reactions. We wake up, scroll through our phones, rush to work, respond to messages, and carry countless worries that have no true importance in the present moment. Our minds are constantly occupied, jumping from memory to expectation, from guilt to desire. We live in the past or the future, rarely here. This fragmentation of attention creates a deep sense of restlessness, because the present is the only place where life truly exists, and yet it is the place we most frequently abandon. Mindfulness calls us back home to the now, the only doorway to peace. The Buddha described mindfulness as the direct path to enlightenment. Why? Because when you observe your experience with presence, you begin to see that the mind is not a solid entity, but a flowing process. Thoughts arise, stay for a moment, and pass away. Emotions surge, transform, and dissolve. Sensations appear and vanish. When you notice this impermanence directly, your attachment to thoughts and emotions weakens. You no longer believe every story your mind tells. You start to rest as the witness rather than the prisoner of your mind. To cultivate mindfulness, you do not need to change your life circumstances. You only need to change your relationship to them. When washing dishes, be aware of the warmth of the water, the texture of the plate, the movement of your hands. When walking, feel each step connect with the ground. Sense your breathing, the air brushing your skin. These small acts of awareness are sacred. They reconnect you to life itself. Each mindful breath is a bridge that leads you back to your true nature, calm, clear, awake. But mindfulness is not limited to pleasant moments. Its real power appears when facing pain, fear, or anxiety. When an uncomfortable emotion arises, our instinct is to escape, to distract ourselves, to rationalize, to blame. Yet the Buddha taught that avoidance perpetuates suffering. To heal, you must stay. You must allow the emotion to exist fully, to feel its texture and its vibration, without identifying with it. If you observe anger mindfully, it loses its destructive fire and reveals its root, usually fear or pain. If you observe sadness with compassion, it becomes tenderness. Mindfulness transforms poison into medicine. Every emotion is a wave, and mindfulness is the ocean that holds it. The wave may rise, swell, and crash, but the ocean remains vast and undisturbed. In the same way, your awareness is never harmed by what it observes. When you rest in awareness, even intense emotions become bearable, because you know you are not the emotion. You are the space in which it happens. Modern psychology has confirmed what Buddhism taught centuries ago. Mindfulness restructures the brain. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex, associated with focus and emotional regulation, and calms the amygdala, the center of fear and reactivity. In simple terms, mindfulness rewires the mind from chaos to coherence. But its deepest gift is spiritual. It reconnects you with a sense of inner wholeness that does not depend on circumstances. One of the most powerful mindfulness practices is conscious breathing. The breath is always present. It is a mirror of your mind. When the mind is agitated, the breath becomes shallow and quick. When the mind is calm, the breath flows deeply and gently. By paying attention to the breath, you anchor yourself in the now. The breath reminds you that life unfolds one moment at a time. You do not need to solve the past or predict the future. You only need to breathe and be aware. The Buddha often instructed his disciples, when breathing in, know that you are breathing in. When breathing out, know that you are breathing out. This simple instruction holds profound wisdom. It trains you to inhabit each moment fully. As mindfulness deepens, even ordinary experiences reveal their beauty. A cup of tea, a beam of sunlight, the sound of rain, all become expressions of the sacred. Awareness turns life into meditation. However, the practice of mindfulness is not about controlling thoughts or forcing silence. Many beginners make the mistake of trying to suppress the mind's movement. But the goal is not to stop thinking, it is to see thoughts for what they are, temporary clouds passing through the sky of consciousness. The more you observe them without resistance, the more they dissolve naturally. Over time, gaps of stillness appear between thoughts, and those gaps are the essence of peace. Imagine sitting beside a flowing river. The water moves, carrying leaves and branches, yet you remain still on the shore. This is mindfulness. The river is your mind. The observer is your awareness. Problems arise only when you jump into the river, when you identify with the current. By staying on the shore, you see clearly, without drowning. Healing begins when you learn to stay on that shore, even when storms come. Another essential aspect of mindfulness is compassion. Awareness without kindness can become rigid or detached. The Buddha emphasized that true mindfulness must be infused with loving kindness, metta. When you observe your own suffering with warmth instead of judgment, healing accelerates. Self-compassion softens the edges of pain. It allows you to be human, to acknowledge imperfection without shame. The mind heals not through force, but through understanding and acceptance. Mindfulness also reveals the interconnection of all things. When you are present, you begin to sense that everything in existence arises together. Breath, sound, sensation, thought. There is no separate I controlling the experience. There is only a vast process unfolding. This realization is liberating because it dissolves the illusion of isolation. You see that your suffering is not uniquely yours. It is part of the universal flow of human experience. And in that seeing, a great compassion arises for all beings. One of the obstacles on the path of mindfulness is impatience. Many practitioners expect quick results, immediate calm, perfect focus, constant peace. But mindfulness is like tending a garden. You must plant seeds, water them daily, and trust the process. Some days the mind will be restless, other days serene. Both are part of the path. The point is not to achieve a certain state, but to remain aware of whatever state arises. Progress in mindfulness is subtle. It happens through consistent presence, not perfection. The Buddha compared mindfulness to a lamp that illuminates the darkness. When the lamp of awareness is lit, you begin to see the patterns that cause your suffering, your reactive habits, your fears, your judgments. Seeing them clearly is the first step toward transformation. You cannot change what you do not see. Awareness exposes the roots of suffering, and once exposed, they lose their grip. Mindfulness also transforms relationships. When you listen to someone with full presence, without planning your reply or judging their words, you offer them the rare gift of true attention. People feel seen, heard, and valued. This kind of listening heals both the listener and the speaker. The heart calms when it is fully received. In a world dominated by noise and distraction, mindful presence is a revolutionary act of love. Furthermore, mindfulness liberates us from the tyranny of desire. Most of our unhappiness comes from wanting things to be other than they are. We chase pleasure, avoid pain, and live in constant dissatisfaction. But when you are mindful, you begin to see desire as it arises, before it turns into compulsion. You recognize the thought, "I need this to be happy," as just a thought. You see the craving without feeding it. Over time, this awareness weakens the habit of grasping, and peace naturally follows. The less you crave, the freer you become. There is a story in Buddhist tradition about a man who came to the Buddha complaining of his problems, his family, his work, his aging body. He asked the Buddha for a solution that would eliminate his difficulties. The Buddha replied, "Everyone has 83 problems. I cannot help you remove them. What I can teach you is how not to suffer because of them." The man asked, "Then what will happen to my problems?" The Buddha smiled and said, "You will still have them, but they will no longer have you." This is the essence of mindfulness. It does not erase life's challenges. It changes your relationship to them. You move from victim to witness, from reaction to response, from chaos to calm. Practicing mindfulness throughout the day can take many forms. You can pause before eating to acknowledge gratitude for the food. You can take 3 conscious breaths before answering a stressful message. You can notice your posture, your tone of voice, your emotional state as you speak. Each of these small acts strengthens awareness. Over time, mindfulness becomes not just a practice, but a way of being, a gentle vigilance that keeps the mind clear and the heart open. Mindfulness also brings humility. The more you observe yourself, the more you realize how often the mind misinterprets reality. You notice how judgments arise automatically, how emotions distort perception, how the ego constructs stories to protect its image. This insight dissolves arrogance and opens the door to wisdom. You stop clinging to opinions and start seeing multiple perspectives. You learn to say, "Maybe I don't know." In that humility, peace grows. A mindful person lives lightly. They no longer rush through life chasing imaginary destinations. They savor moments, breathe deeply, and act with intention. They respond instead of reacting. Their presence becomes healing for others because it radiates calm. In their company, people feel safe, seen, and soothed. This is the silent power of mindfulness. It heals not only the practitioner, but everyone they touch. Yet mindfulness is not a destination, it is a continuous returning. The mind will wander 1,000 times, and 1,000 times you will bring it back. Each return strengthens awareness. Each moment of remembrance is a victory. Even if you are mindful for 1 breath out of 100, that single breath contains freedom. Gradually, mindfulness permeates your entire life, transforming ordinary days into sacred practice. As your awareness deepens, you begin to experience a subtle joy that does not depend on external circumstances. This joy arises from simply being. It is the contentment of existing fully in the present moment, without needing anything more. The Buddha called this joy the happiness of blamelessness, the peace of a mind that is awake and undisturbed. It is not excitement or pleasure, but quiet fulfillment, the song of the heart when it finally rests. To heal your mind, cultivate this awareness patiently. Begin now with this breath. Feel it enter, feel it leave. Watch thoughts come and go without interference. Notice sensations without judgment. This is the ground of freedom. This is how the mind heals, by seeing clearly, by staying present, by remembering that awareness itself is already whole. And when you fall back into distraction, do not despair. Gently bring yourself back, like a parent guiding a child home. The Buddha said that even a single moment of genuine mindfulness outweighs years of forgetfulness. Each moment of awareness is a seed of awakening. Tend to these seeds with care, and your mind will blossom with serenity. If this second secret has spoken to you, if it reminded you that peace is not found outside, but within, then nurture that insight. Take a breath, feel gratitude for this present moment, and remember, awareness is the beginning of healing. To keep walking this path together, subscribe to the channel and be part of this growing circle of wisdom and calm hearts. Every act of presence you cultivate adds more peace to the world. The third secret, compassion as the medicine of the heart. Compassion is the silent heartbeat of Buddhism. If mindfulness clears the mind, compassion heals the heart. It is the force that transforms awareness into love and wisdom into warmth. Without compassion, even the purest insight remains incomplete, for the goal of spiritual practice is not only to awaken, but to awaken with an open heart. Compassion, karuna, is the natural fragrance that arises from understanding suffering, your own and that of others. It is not pity or sentimental kindness, but the deep recognition that all beings, including yourself, are doing their best within the limits of their pain and confusion. When the Buddha looked upon the world after his enlightenment, he did not see enemies or strangers. He saw beings trapped in cycles of ignorance and craving, lost in dreams of I and mine. His heart responded not with judgment, but with immense compassion. He saw suffering not as a personal failure, but as a universal condition. Every person you meet, whether gentle or cruel, loving or indifferent, is carrying invisible wounds, fears, and desires. To see this is to dissolve the illusion of separation, and from that seeing arises compassion as a spontaneous response, not as a duty. To heal your heart, you must learn the art of compassion, toward others, yes, but especially toward yourself. Many people misunderstand compassion as weakness or indulgence. They believe they must be hard on themselves to improve. But harshness breeds only shame and fear, never transformation. The Buddha taught that self-compassion is the foundation of all compassion. You cannot give to others what you deny to yourself. When you treat your own suffering with understanding rather than punishment, you create the inner conditions for peace to blossom. The mind calms when it no longer fears its own pain. Compassion begins with recognition. This is suffering. When you are anxious, lonely, or heartbroken, simply naming your experience opens a door. You stop running away and start listening. You place a gentle hand on your heart, not to make the pain disappear, but to acknowledge it with kindness. In that moment of tenderness, healing begins. The Buddha said, "You can search the entire world for someone more deserving of your love and compassion than yourself, and you will not find that person." To heal the mind, you must include yourself in the circle of your own kindness. But compassion is not passive. It is a courageous engagement with life. It means allowing your heart to be touched by suffering without collapsing into it. It means staying open even when it hurts. The natural tendency of the human mind is to protect itself, to build walls against pain, yet those walls become prisons. Compassion gently dissolves them, reminding you that the heart's purpose is not to avoid pain, but to transform it into understanding. When you let yourself feel another's sorrow deeply, something remarkable happens. The boundary between self and other softens. You experience a unity that transcends fear. In Buddhism, compassion and wisdom are inseparable, like two wings of a bird. Wisdom sees the truth of impermanence and interdependence. Compassion responds to that truth with love. Together, they allow you to move through the world with balance, seeing suffering clearly without being overwhelmed by it. Without wisdom, compassion can burn you out. Without compassion, wisdom can become cold. The middle way is their integration, a heart that feels deeply and a mind that sees clearly. When you practice compassion, you reorient your entire emotional system. The mind shifts from "what can I get" to "how can I help," from "why me" to "how are we all connected in this." This shift dissolves the ego's grip and brings a sense of meaning that transcends personal gain. You begin to live not as a separate individual struggling for survival, but as part of a larger flow of life, participating in its healing. This is why compassion is considered the medicine of the heart. It heals the illusion of isolation that lies at the root of suffering. There are many ways to cultivate compassion, but all begin with awareness. Notice when judgment arises, toward yourself or others. Instead of feeding it, pause and ask, what pain might be behind this behavior? This simple question transforms irritation into understanding. You realize that anger often masks fear, that cruelty hides insecurity, that indifference conceals old wounds. By seeing this, you release the need to attack or defend. You learn to respond rather than react. Compassion does not mean tolerating harm or staying silent in the face of injustice. It means acting from wisdom rather than hatred. A compassionate heart is firm yet kind, strong yet gentle. A traditional Buddhist practice for developing compassion is metta bhavana, or the cultivation of loving kindness. It begins with directing goodwill toward yourself. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. At first, these words may feel mechanical or even false, especially if you are used to self-criticism. But as you repeat them sincerely, the heart slowly opens. You start to believe that you are worthy of love, not because of achievements or perfection, but simply because you exist. From there, you extend the same wishes to others. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. Gradually, this circle expands to friends, strangers, and even those who have hurt you. The goal is not to condone their actions, but to free yourself from hatred, which poisons the heart. The Buddha compared hatred to holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. It is you who gets burned first. When you forgive, you do not deny the harm done. You simply refuse to carry its fire inside you any longer. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength. It is the recognition that clinging to resentment keeps you chained to the past. Compassion allows you to put down the coal and walk free. In the modern world, compassion is often dismissed as impractical. Yet if you look closely, you will see that every act of genuine healing, whether in a family, a community, or the world, begins with compassion. It is the force that bridges divides, heals trauma, and softens hearts. When you act from compassion, you become an agent of peace. Your presence itself becomes medicine. Even a silent prayer for another's well-being has power, for it shifts the vibration of your own mind from contraction to expansion. Compassion also means setting healthy boundaries. To truly care for others, you must include yourself in the circle of care. If you give until you are empty, resentment grows. The Buddha taught that compassion must be balanced with equanimity, the ability to care deeply without losing yourself in another's suffering. True compassion empowers, it does not enslave. It allows you to say no when needed, without anger or guilt. It understands that sometimes the most compassionate act is to let others face their own path, to allow them the dignity of learning through their experience. Compassion is wise. It knows that rescuing others prematurely can rob them of growth. To live compassionately requires vulnerability. It asks you to feel the world in its rawness, the joy and the sorrow, the beauty and the pain. Many people close their hearts because feeling deeply seems unbearable. But the paradox is that when you shut out pain, you also shut out love. The heart cannot be selective. It opens or it closes. Compassion teaches you to open fully and yet remain steady. You learn to let emotions flow through without drowning in them. You realize that the heart's capacity for pain is matched only by its capacity for love. This is why compassion is healing. It reawakens your humanity. In the presence of compassion, the nervous system relaxes, the body softens, the mind quiets. You move from defense to connection. Compassion activates the same biological systems that soothe an infant held in its mother's arms. It releases oxytocin, slows the heart rate, and creates a sense of safety. When you practice compassion, you are not only uplifting your spirit, you are literally reprogramming your body toward calm and balance. But compassion must also include the global perspective. The Buddha taught that every being wishes to avoid suffering and find happiness. This recognition dissolves barriers of race, nationality, or belief. When you see others through the eyes of compassion, you stop categorizing them as us and them. You begin to perceive the shared essence beneath differences. The more your heart expands, the more inclusive your compassion becomes. Eventually, it encompasses not only humans, but all living beings, the animals, the forests, the oceans. You begin to live with reverence for all forms of life, recognizing that their well-being is intertwined with your own. Yet compassion does not come naturally to a mind dominated by fear. To awaken compassion, you must confront your own pain honestly. Every wound you heal within yourself expands your capacity to hold others' pain. If you suppress or deny your suffering, you cannot meet another's suffering without discomfort. But when you have touched your own darkness and survived, you become a light for others lost in theirs. Compassion is born from this shared vulnerability, from knowing both the fragility and the resilience of the human heart. There is a story of a monk who was meditating in the forest when he encountered a wounded deer. The animal had been shot by hunters and was dying slowly. The monk sat beside it, reciting prayers of compassion, tears falling from his eyes. Later, when asked why he wept despite his understanding of impermanence, he replied, "Because my heart is awake." This is the essence of Buddhist compassion, not detachment, but full-hearted presence. Enlightenment is not cold neutrality. It is the fire of love that burns away separation. To bring compassion into daily life, you must practice seeing people beyond their actions. The angry driver, the rude co-worker, the impatient customer, all are reflections of suffering minds. When you meet them with gentleness rather than hostility, you stop the chain of reactivity. Compassion breaks cycles of pain. It turns conflict into understanding, division into unity. Even a simple smile, a patient silence, or a sincere thank you can ripple outward in ways you may never see. One of the most beautiful expressions of compassion is listening. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. But when you listen with full attention and an open heart, you become a mirror for the other's truth. You offer them the space to be without judgment. This kind of listening is rare, yet it heals more than advice ever could. It tells the other person, you matter, your pain matters. In that recognition, something shifts. The heart relaxes, the mind softens. This is compassion in action. Still, compassion must also face reality. The world is full of suffering beyond what one person can fix. The compassionate heart learns to act where it can and accept where it cannot. This is not indifference, but wisdom. You plant seeds of kindness knowing you may never see their fruits. You trust that every act of compassion, no matter how small, contributes to the healing of the whole. The Buddha said that a single drop of compassion is enough to cool an ocean of anger. Believe that your small acts matter, for they do. As you deepen in compassion, you will encounter the paradox of pain and joy coexisting. The more open your heart becomes, the more sensitive you are to the suffering of the world, and yet, simultaneously, the more peace you feel. Compassion does not lead to despair, but to serenity, because it aligns you with the truth of interbeing. You realize that life is both fragile and miraculous, that birth and death, joy and sorrow are inseparable. Compassion teaches you to love the whole of existence, not just the pleasant parts. To practice compassion daily, begin with small gestures. Offer genuine attention to someone who is struggling. Forgive a mistake. Speak kindly to yourself after a failure. Pause before reacting in anger. Every act of compassion, however tiny, strengthens the heart's capacity. Over time, compassion becomes your natural state, an effortless radiance that flows through you. The heart, once wounded, becomes a source of healing for others. You embody the truth that pain, when embraced, becomes wisdom. In the end, compassion is the bridge between self and all. It is the medicine that heals division, the light that dispels ignorance, the warmth that softens the frozen places of the soul. When compassion flowers, the mind and heart become one. You see clearly and love deeply, and from that union arises unshakable peace. If these words resonate in your heart, if they remind you that healing begins with kindness, then let that seed grow. Breathe deeply, open your heart to yourself and to others, and carry this compassion into your daily life. And if you wish to keep walking this path of wisdom and peace, subscribe to the channel. Each act of awareness and compassion you practice brings light not only to your life, but to the lives of countless others who are silently seeking the same peace. The fourth secret, the art of letting go. The Buddha taught that the root of all suffering lies in attachment, our tendency to cling to things, people, experiences, and identities as though they were permanent. This clinging, born from fear and ignorance, creates endless cycles of anxiety and disappointment. To heal the mind and calm the heart, we must learn the art of letting go, not as a gesture of loss, but as an act of freedom. Letting go is not giving up. It is the courageous choice to stop holding on to what is already slipping through our fingers. It is the quiet acceptance that change is the nature of existence, and that peace arises when we stop fighting the flow of life. Everything in the universe is in motion. The river flows, the seasons shift, the stars are born and die, the cells of your body renew themselves each day. Yet the human mind, trapped in illusion, tries to hold still what cannot be held. We cling to youth, to possessions, to relationships, to beliefs, to identities. We say, "This is mine," or "This must last," and in that very grasping suffering begins. The Buddha compared attachment to holding a burning rope. The tighter you grip it, the more you burn. The way to heal is to open your hand, to let the rope fall, to trust that what is meant to remain will remain. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons for the mind because it strikes at the core of ego. The ego survives through control. It believes that safety lies in certainty, that happiness depends on keeping what it wants and avoiding what it fears. But life refuses to be controlled. The more we resist its natural flow, the more friction we create. Every should and must we impose upon reality is a silent war with the truth. Healing begins when we surrender this war and allow life to move as it will. The great irony is that we do not lose anything real by letting go, only the illusions that caused our pain. The first step in letting go is awareness. You must see clearly what you are clinging to and why. Often, we hold on because we confuse attachment with love, control with security, memory with identity. We cling to relationships that have expired because we fear loneliness. We cling to success because we fear being unseen. We cling to opinions because we fear being wrong. To let go, we must bring these fears into the light of understanding. We must see that our attachments are not protecting us. They are suffocating us. True love is spacious. It allows freedom. True security comes from acceptance, not control. True identity is not a fixed story, but the awareness that witnesses all stories. Meditation teaches this lesson experientially. When you sit in stillness, thoughts arise like waves, memories, plans, worries. If you try to suppress them, they grow stronger. If you chase them, you drown in them, but if you simply watch them, they pass. This is the essence of letting go, the ability to observe without grasping or resisting. Thoughts, like clouds, come and go. Awareness remains the sky. When you realize this, you begin to release the illusion that peace depends on circumstances. Peace is the natural state of the mind when it stops clinging. Letting go also means forgiving. We carry so much weight in our hearts, grievances, regrets, guilt. These emotions tie us to the past like chains. The Buddha said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness is the act of dropping that cup. It is not about excusing harm, but about freeing yourself from its grip. To forgive is to say, I will no longer let this wound define my heart. Healing begins not when you forget the past, but when you stop reliving it. Forgiveness releases you from the endless repetition of pain. It opens space for compassion to enter, and in that space, love breathes again. But letting go is not limited to relationships or emotions. It also includes letting go of ideals and expectations, the images of how life should be. We suffer when we compare reality to our imagined versions of it. We say, I should be happier by now. This relationship should last forever. My life should look like theirs. These expectations create tension between what is and what we want. The Buddha taught that peace arises from aligning with reality, not opposing it. When we let go of the should, we begin to see the is with clarity. Life becomes simpler, more spacious, more alive. Letting go also means releasing control over the future. The mind, always restless, tries to predict, plan, and secure outcomes. It imagines countless scenarios, most of them fearful. Yet the future is unborn. It exists only in imagination. Anxiety is the price we pay for wanting to live in a moment that has not yet arrived. To heal the heart, we must bring the mind back to the present. The Buddha said that the past is a dream, the future is a mirage, and only the present is real. When you release your grip on what might be, you free yourself to experience what already is. This is not irresponsibility, it is trust. Trust that whatever comes, you will meet it with awareness. Trust is a profound form of letting go. It means resting in the mystery of life without demanding guarantees. It means saying, I don't know what will happen, but I will stay open. The ego fears this openness because it thrives on control. But the heart, when surrendered, finds freedom in uncertainty. It discovers that life, when not forced, unfolds with intelligence. Many of our deepest blessings arrive not through control, but through surrender, through the spaces we did not fill, the doors we allowed to close, the silence we dared to enter. One of the illusions that prevent us from letting go is the belief in permanence. We behave as if people, possessions, and experiences will last forever, even though deep down we know they won't. This denial of impermanence keeps us trapped in fear. The Buddha invited us to contemplate change as a way to free ourselves from delusion. Everything that arises passes. Every joy fades. Every sorrow ends. To understand this not intellectually but viscerally is to be liberated. When you know that nothing can be held, you stop clinging. You begin to appreciate things fully while they are here, without trying to freeze them in time. Impermanence, once accepted, becomes beauty itself. The cherry blossom is beautiful precisely because it will fall. Letting go requires courage. It means facing emptiness, the space that remains when something leaves. Most people fear that space. They rush to fill it with new distractions, relationships, or goals. But emptiness is not void. It is potential. It is the quiet field from which all creation arises. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you make room for what truly belongs to you. The universe cannot give you new gifts while your hands are full of old burdens. Letting go is an act of faith in this unseen order, a statement that says, I trust life to bring me what is meant for me. In Buddhist practice, detachment is often misunderstood as cold indifference, but true detachment is love without possession. It is care without control, appreciation without fear of loss. The detached heart is not numb, it is free. It can love deeply because it is not bound by attachment. It can experience pain without being destroyed by it. Detachment allows you to participate fully in life without being enslaved by it. When you understand that nothing belongs to you, you begin to enjoy everything more deeply because each moment becomes a gift, not a guarantee. The practice of letting go extends to the smallest details of daily life. You can let go of the need to be right in an argument. You can let go of self-criticism when you make a mistake. You can let go of overthinking when faced with uncertainty. Each release, no matter how minor, brings peace. The cumulative effect of these small surrenders is profound. Gradually, your mind becomes lighter, your heart softer. You begin to notice how much energy was wasted in resistance. Letting go gives that energy back to you, allowing it to flow into creativity, joy, and love. Letting go also means allowing others to be as they are. Much of our suffering in relationships comes from trying to change people. We want them to think, behave, or feel according to our expectations, but every person is following their own path, shaped by their own karma. To demand that they conform to our desires is to deny them the freedom we ourselves seek. The Buddha taught that love must be unconditional to be pure. True love says, I see you as you are, and I accept your journey. When you release others from your control, both you and they become free. This freedom extends inward as well. We must let go of our self-images, the stories we tell about who we are. I am successful. I am a failure. I am broken. I am strong. These are all labels, temporary roles. The deeper self is beyond description. The Buddha did not teach the annihilation of self, but the understanding that self is not a fixed thing. It is a process. When you let go of your rigid identity, you discover vastness. You become fluid, able to respond to each moment without being bound by past definitions. This flexibility is mental health. The mind heals when it stops defending a story and starts living the truth of change. Letting go is also the doorway to gratitude. When you release the illusion of ownership, you realize that everything you experience is a gift. You stop taking things for granted because you know they are fleeting. The morning light, a friend's voice, the breath in your lungs, each becomes precious because it will not last forever. Gratitude is the natural companion of impermanence. When you stop grasping at life, you begin to marvel at it. Every moment becomes enough. But the process of letting go is rarely linear. Sometimes you release something only to find yourself holding it again. Old patterns resurface, attachments return in subtler forms. This is normal. The mind has been conditioned for years, even lifetimes, to cling. Be patient. Each act of awareness weakens the old habit. Letting go is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice, like exhaling. You breathe in experience, you breathe out attachment. With each breath, you free yourself a little more. One of the most profound insights of Buddhism is that clinging and suffering are not separate. They are the same. When you hold on tightly, you create tension. When you release, you feel peace. The difference between pain and suffering lies in resistance. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. When you stop resisting what is, pain passes through you like a wave. When you resist, it becomes a storm that never ends. Letting go is learning to let the wave move without fighting it. It is allowing life to breathe through you moment by moment. Consider how trees let go of their leaves each autumn. They do not cling to the branches in despair, nor do they rush to replace them. They trust that new leaves will come when the time is right. In the same way, life asks you to release what has completed its season. Relationships, beliefs, roles, and even versions of yourself all must fall when their time is done. The ground of your being knows this rhythm. Only the mind forgets. To live in harmony with life, you must learn from the trees. Let go gracefully. Trust renewal. Letting go also opens the door to creativity. When you stop clinging to fixed outcomes, inspiration flows freely. The mind becomes a clear channel through which life expresses itself. Many artists, monks, and thinkers have discovered that their best work arises not from control, but from surrender. They let go of perfectionism, fear, and self-consciousness, allowing something greater to move through them. This surrender is the same energy that heals the heart. It is the recognition that you are not the doer, but the vessel. When you release control, life creates through you effortlessly. Finally, letting go leads to peace because it aligns you with truth. The truth is that everything changes, nothing belongs to you, and control is an illusion. When you stop fighting this truth, suffering ends. What remains is a vast, quiet joy, not the joy of possession, but the joy of presence. It is the peace of being one with the flow of life, the serenity of no longer needing anything to be different. To let go is to trust that what is yours cannot be taken, and what is taken was never truly yours. It is to live lightly, to walk through the world with open hands and an open heart. It is to say, I am grateful for this, and when it goes, I will still be whole. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to, the liberation that comes not from gaining but from releasing. If these words remind you of something your heart has long known, that peace is not found in holding on, but in letting go, then carry that wisdom into your life. Practice releasing small things each day, a judgment, an expectation, a fear. Feel how lightness follows, and if you wish to keep deepening this journey toward freedom and awareness, subscribe to the channel. Join a space where each teaching, each reflection, and each breath brings you closer to the art of letting go, to the simplicity of being, and to the peace that cannot be taken from you. The fifth secret: finding stillness amid the noise. To heal the mind and calm the heart, one must learn to return again and again to the still point within. The Buddha described this as samatha, the cultivation of inner calm that anchors us amid the constant turbulence of life. The world outside will never be silent. Noise is its nature. People will speak, events will unfold, responsibilities will call, the winds of change will blow endlessly. But there exists, deep within you, a space untouched by this motion, a silent center that remains pure, luminous, and unshaken. To find that space is to find freedom. It is to discover that peace is not something you chase or create, but something you uncover. It has been there all along, beneath the layers of thought and noise. The modern mind is rarely still. We live surrounded by stimulation, glowing screens, constant messages, endless news. We scroll, react, consume, and comment. Even when we are physically still, our minds keep running, jumping between the regrets of yesterday and the uncertainties of tomorrow. We fear stillness because it confronts us with ourselves. In silence, the illusions we hide behind dissolve, and what remains is truth, raw, unfiltered, sometimes uncomfortable. Yet that confrontation is precisely what the soul longs for, because only through stillness do we begin to see clearly. The Buddha's invitation was not to escape the world, but to see it as it is. And to see clearly, the mind must first become quiet. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of resistance. A lake becomes still not because the world stops moving, but because it ceases to fight the wind. The waves settle and the water reflects the sky. The mind is the same. When we stop resisting life, when we cease to judge, control, or react, the ripples calm and awareness becomes a mirror. In that mirror, truth reveals itself effortlessly. The practice of stillness is therefore not about withdrawal, but surrender. It is the willingness to rest in what is, without trying to change it. To begin, we must understand that stillness is not something we can force. The more we chase it, the more elusive it becomes. Like a frightened animal, peace approaches only when we stop grasping. You cannot make the mind silent by ordering it to be so. You can only create the conditions for silence to appear. Meditation is that condition, not a technique to manipulate the mind, but a space of allowance. When you sit in awareness, breathing gently, letting thoughts rise and fall without interference, stillness begins to emerge naturally. You start to notice the gap between thoughts, a subtle pause that expands the more you attend to it. That gap is the doorway to inner peace. It is where the noise ends and the infinite begins. This stillness is not empty. It is full of presence. Within it, everything exists. Sound, sensation, thought, yet nothing disturbs it. The Buddha called this state the unshakable mind. It is the mind that remains clear in joy and in sorrow, in gain and in loss, in praise and in blame. Such stability is not indifference, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that all conditions are impermanent and therefore not worth clinging to. When you rest in stillness, you do not deny emotion, but you see through it. Anger, fear, or desire may arise, but they pass like clouds across the vast sky of awareness. The sky does not resist, it simply allows. To cultivate stillness amid noise, one must start with the body. The body is the gateway to the mind. When the body is restless, the mind cannot settle. Thus, we begin with simple awareness of the breath, the rise and fall, the expansion and contraction. As you watch the breath, you anchor yourself in the present moment. The breath becomes your home. Thoughts will come, sounds will distract, emotions will tug, but you return gently to the breath. Each return is an act of remembering, a quiet yes to presence. Over time, you realize that the noise was never the problem, your identification with it was. The mind learns to rest amid sound as easily as amid silence. Stillness, paradoxically, reveals movement as sacred. When you are truly still inside, even motion becomes meditation. Walking, eating, speaking, all become expressions of peace. You move slowly, consciously, aware of the miracle in every gesture. This is why the Buddha emphasized mindfulness in all activities. To wash a dish mindfully is as holy as to sit in meditation. When presence infuses your actions, life itself becomes the temple. You no longer need to escape noise because you have discovered the stillness that contains it. However, the journey to stillness is often met with resistance from the mind. The mind fears silence because silence dissolves the self it has constructed. In the beginning, when you attempt to be still, you may feel discomfort, restlessness, boredom, even anxiety. This is the mind's defense mechanism. It throws noise at you to keep its illusions alive. But if you stay, if you breathe through the restlessness, something remarkable happens. The storm subsides. Beneath the surface chatter, you begin to sense a deeper awareness, vast, timeless, free. That awareness is not yours, it is what you are. Stillness is your original state before thought. The practice is not to create it, but to remember it. In stillness, the heart begins to heal. Much of our suffering comes from running from pain, from emptiness, from ourselves. When you stop running, the unhealed parts of you surface. Memories, wounds, regrets, all come to light. Many people fear this moment, but it is grace in disguise. Stillness reveals what has been buried so that it can be released. Like mud settling at the bottom of a pond, the mind clears as you stop stirring it. The past loses its grip. Forgiveness arises naturally. You begin to feel a profound tenderness toward yourself, as if seeing your own suffering for the first time without judgment. This tenderness is the beginning of love. The Buddha often described the mind as a monkey, constantly jumping from branch to branch, from thought to thought. The goal is not to kill the monkey, but to train it. Through consistent practice, the monkey learns to sit still, and when it finally rests, something extraordinary happens. The forest, life itself, becomes audible. You begin to hear the subtler music of existence, the whisper of the wind, the rhythm of breath, the silent pulse beneath all movement. The world has not changed, you have. What once felt chaotic now feels harmonious. This is the gift of stillness. It does not change life, it changes your relationship to it. But how can one remain still amid a noisy world filled with responsibilities, relationships, and endless demands? The key is to shift the locus of control from outside to inside. You cannot control what happens, but you can control how deeply it disturbs your peace. The Buddha likened this to a man standing in a river. The current may pull and swirl, but if he plants his feet firmly on the riverbed, he remains steady. In the same way, stillness anchors you in the flow of life. Noise will continue, but it will pass through you without uprooting you. This inner steadiness is what the Buddha called upekkha, equanimity, the calm that remains undisturbed by the world's dualities. Equanimity does not mean indifference or withdrawal. It means seeing clearly without getting entangled. When someone praises you, you smile but do not become inflated. When someone criticizes you, you listen but do not collapse. When pleasure comes, you enjoy it. When pain arrives, you endure it. You no longer oscillate wildly between extremes because you are rooted in something deeper. The quiet, knowing that all conditions are temporary. This state cannot be faked. It grows naturally from the soil of awareness. It is the fruit of stillness. In this stillness, you discover a subtle joy. Not the joy of excitement, but the joy of being. It arises from simple presence, from the recognition that this moment, as it is enough. The Buddha described this as praiti, the rapture of tranquility. It is a sweetness that fills the heart without reason. You may be sitting alone, hearing distant sounds, feeling the breath move, and suddenly joy blooms for no cause. This is the joy of existence awakening to itself. It cannot be bought or sought. It arrives when the mind is silent and the heart is open. Stillness also transforms the way we perceive time. When the mind is noisy, time feels fragmented. We rush from one task to another, haunted by the past, anxious for the future. But when the mind is still, time dissolves. There is only now, infinite and whole. A single breath feels timeless. A simple moment contains eternity. This is why the Buddha called the present moment the gateway to the deathless. To live fully in the present is to transcend time itself. In stillness, you discover that you were never moving through life. Life was moving through you. The more you rest in stillness, the more wisdom arises. Wisdom does not come from accumulating information, but from perceiving reality directly. When the mind is quiet, insight appears spontaneously, like reflections on a calm pond. You see patterns of cause and effect. How craving leads to suffering, how compassion dissolves anger, how letting go brings peace. This direct seeing is vipassana, insight meditation. It complements stillness like light complements space. Together, they illuminate the path to freedom. Stillness gives clarity. Clarity gives understanding. Understanding gives liberation. Yet even as you deepen in stillness, you will face challenges. Life will test your peace. People will provoke you, events will disappoint you, desires will arise. The ego will whisper, "You are losing your calm, you are failing." But remember, stillness is not perfection. It is not about never feeling disturbed. It is about returning again and again to the quiet center. Each time you fall and rise, the center grows stronger. The Buddha himself faced storms of criticism, temptation, and loss, yet he remained anchored in serenity. He did not fight the noise. He embraced it as part of the dance of existence. To follow his example is to understand that stillness is not the opposite of movement. It is the awareness within it. There will be days when silence feels distant, when the mind refuses to rest. On those days, be gentle. Sit with your restlessness as you would with a child. Patient, kind, without force. Remember that stillness is not something you achieve, but something you allow. It reveals itself when you stop trying. Just as muddy water clears when left undisturbed, the mind clears when left alone. The path to stillness is not through effort, but through surrender. It is not a doing, it is a being. When stillness becomes your home, the world transforms. The same streets, the same faces, the same responsibilities now carry a different energy. You see beauty in the ordinary, meaning in the mundane. You respond to life instead of reacting to it. Even in the midst of chaos, you remain centered. You discover that peace is not fragile. It is indestructible because it does not depend on anything outside you. It is the natural rhythm of your being, waiting patiently beneath the surface of thought. To live from this stillness is to move through life like a calm lake reflecting the sky. You speak softly, act deliberately, and love deeply. You stop trying to fix the world and instead embody peace within it. Others feel this presence and are drawn to it, not because you preach, but because you radiate what they seek. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within, do not seek it without." When you become still, you become that peace. A silent reminder to others that they too can return home to themselves. And perhaps this is the greatest healing of all, to discover that the mind does not need to be fixed, only understood, that the heart does not need to be armored, only opened, that life does not need to be controlled, only lived. Stillness is the space where all these truths converge. It is the sacred pause between breaths, the silence between thoughts, the vastness between moments. When you rest there, even for a heartbeat, you touch eternity. So as this final secret unfolds, remember that stillness is not far away. It is here, in this very breath, in this very awareness. You do not have to travel, learn, or achieve to find it. You need only stop running and listen. Beneath the noise of the world, beneath the noise of your own mind, the silence is waiting. It has always been waiting. Sit quietly, feel the breath. Let the world move around you while you remain unmoved within. That is the secret. That is the refuge. That is the healing. If these words reminded you of the stillness that lives inside you, if even for a moment your mind grew quieter, your heart softer, then let that silence guide you forward. Continue this journey of awakening with us. Subscribe to the channel and stay close to the teachings that remind you of what you already are: calm, aware, free. Each act of presence you cultivate ripples outward, bringing more light, more calm, and more compassion into a world that desperately needs it.